Literally 3 hours ago, the Federal Reserve dropped a bombshell in the markets that could be the catalyst to send Bitcoin to $1 million. Yes, I know, $1 million Bitcoin. We've been talking about it forever. But in a press conference this morning, a Fed insider confirmed the Federal Reserve was standing on the sidelines ready to inject liquidity. And this comes after they've been quietly printing billions of dollars this week because they had a failed bond auction. And the yields in U.S. government debt is rising, and Japan has also been blowing out to 20-year highs. So are we seeing a 2020 flashback when the money printers sent Bitcoin flying? Who knows? But let's get into this source material. And of course, I'm not alone. I got Nico here with me today, but I've become somehow the macro expert here on the show, so this is why I'm covering the news. Anyways, the first story here, guys, is probably the most interesting. We've been seeing, at least kind of covering this on Simply Bitcoin. Everyone knows, at least if you're watching TradFi, Jay Powell has been kind of holding strong on Fed rate cuts, but it seems like he's being forced into a corner. And this morning we got a speech from the vice chair, Philip N. Jefferson, regarding central bank liquidity and what their role is. So if you got to see this, of course, it's on federalreserve.gov. I'm not going to read the whole thing, just kind of the beginning. And this is titled Liquidity, Facilities, Purposes, and Functions. Again, the main question here should be, why are they even talking about liquidity at this moment in the market? We're going to show you why. But first off, let's just talk about what they said on the term or the theme, as I would say, of turning on the money printer. So here we go. This is their theme, though. The theme of today's conference is developments in financial intermediation and potential implications for monetary policy. As this conference embarks on a larger discussion of the role of banks and non-banks in various market segments, including credit markets, treasury, and money markets and payments, I believe it is worth taking a step back to explore an important background factor, which is how and why central banks provide liquidity. Again, the timing of the vice chair of the Federal Reserve talking about injecting liquidity, you could say it's a coincidence. I think not. Anyways, the provision of liquidity by central banks is a foundational element of financial intermediation. Central banks should be able to provide liquidity effectively for the financial system to function smoothly. Today, I will take this opportunity to discuss some aspects of liquidity provision by the central banks. Of course, the main forms of liquidity provided by central banks, namely currency and bank reserves, are the foundation of safe liquidity in the economy. It is vital for a central bank to make clear. Again, it is vital for a central bank to make clear that it stands ready to provide liquidity should stress emerge, but a central bank must also take steps to minimize moral hazard. Moral hazard in this context refers to the concern that publicly provided liquidity might encourage private financial institutions to take an excess risk. So the rest of this article, he kind of, breaks down the mechanics of it. That it's a little too much jargon for us. But again, the main point, he is doing a speech to re-emphasize why the central bank is ready to inject liquidity into the system. And you might be asking, what's this have to do with Bitcoin? I will get there, but the context of why they are talking about this today, I think, is also the big kahuna here. As we've known for a while, QE, quantitative easing, basically money printer go burr. It hasn't been on the table, but they are doing some stealth quantitative easing, and it's all based because no one really wants to buy yield or buy bonds, sorry. And we got this article over the weekend, Yahoo Finance. Why is the Fed quietly buying billions in bonds and hoping nobody notices? So again, I'm just going to cover this. Yeah,
that's
I'm just going to cover this a little bit and then, show a little charts. Nico's going to chime in. I got some more for you guys. So just reading the beginning, the U.S. Federal Reserve just pulled off something stealthy. Over 4 days last week, without fanfare, the Fed vacuumed up $43.6 billion in U.S. treasuries. That's $8 billion in long-dated 30-year bonds on May 8th alone, plus another $34.8 billion earlier in the week. Not exactly small change. Quietly returning to the quantitative easing trough isn't standard Fed housekeeping. It's like a bank robber returning to the scene because he forgot his keys. Love Yahoo. This was actually a really good article here. But again, what's this have to do with Bitcoin? Well, let's just go handy-dandy fred.stlouisfed.org, and let's just look at the last time they injected liquidity into the market. Obviously, they just continuously print money, but the last time they injected a huge ton. I was going to curse. It's still early. Huge ton of money into the system was, of course, 2020. And we all know what happened in 2020. But you can see just a parabolic print here for M2 money supply. Now, going further, not going full TA, but we all remember what happens in 2020. Yes, it wasn't the glorious 2017 bull run, but the last time they printed this much money, Bitcoin absolutely ripped. So it looks like quantitative easing or money printer going burr. The Fed is essentially, as I was telling Nico's like, what does this mean? Like, I don't understand what is going on this morning. And I'm like, essentially what is going on? Imagine, you offer up a product, say maybe $4.36 billion, and then no one wants to buy it. So you essentially buy it from yourself, and then you take that cash and you're like, yeah, we're good, guys. Trust me, this is good. This isn't money laundering. This isn't the expansion of the money supply. We just bought it from ourselves. This is awesome. Now we're richer. Now we're in a good, stable place. But the TLDR of this first portion here, Nico,
so what you're saying,
money printer is on.
So what you're saying, basically, is the Fed essentially offered these bonds on the open market. There was no interest, and then the Fed bought them themselves.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
And then they did it in a stealthy fashion, hoping that no one would notice.
Totally, literally the easiest way you can explain what happened yesterday. And guys, for you guys that aren't connecting the dots here, essentially, no one is wanting to hold the, standard risk off asset, which is government debt or US government bonds right now. And it's really blowing up the markets, which is a greater indicator of what we always say here on Simply Bitcoin, that you need to hold some Bitcoin. It's truly the only risk off asset currently in the market, non-parallel to the traditional financial system. So what most people think is the safest bet in the market is starting to look like it's not safe. And that is not a good thing for traditional financial markets in general, because it all hinges on government debt. Now, Nico, again, I said there is more to this. And this is probably even crazier here. So we saw this weekend. It was actually yesterday, but Japan's prime minister says that his country's financial situation is worse than that of Greece. And remember what happened. 2008 financial crisis. Greece went basically bankrupt. They blew up. It had huge implications for the rest of the traditional financial system. But for many people that don't understand the connection between Japan and the US, is Japan's bonds is essentially like a leading indicator of where our bonds are going. It's the linchpin for all of traditional financial markets. And going further into this, breaking this down in terms of Bitcoin is where it starts to get a little scary. Now, I'm not coming on here to say full doom and gloom, it's about to blow up tomorrow. All I'm saying is we're seeing a monetary restructuring in real time. So I literally found this guy this morning, but he's been putting a lot of really good tweets in regards to what's going on in Japan. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. Again, you guys can follow him, _the_profit_. He's got a lot of good tweets right now about this. So he goes, this is a major inflection point, and most people have no idea what it means. You can kind of break this down. Japan's debt to GDP is over 260%, but the market tolerated because of one illusion. It's all domestically owned, so it's safe. But that illusion just cracked because their own prime minister admitted systemic insolvency. This isn't just a Japan story. It's the beginning of a global sovereign unwind. Japan is the canary in the bond coal mine. Bitcoin is the exit, not just from inflation, but from broken governments and dying debt systems. As a Bitcoiner, you're way ahead of it. The world isn't ready for this. And Max Kaiser, forget what his name is, the high priest of Bitcoin, he is going bananas this morning. And he goes, this slow motion train wreck, the pin popping, the global Ponzi scheme has taken 20 years to finally burst. The quote, yen carry trade, look it up, has provided liquidity to keep $2 quadrillion worth of derivatives afloat, and now it's unwinding. Is this the finale of the fourth turning, a global bond apocalypse ushering in depression 2.0? Who knows? But of course, the ultimate safe haven Bitcoin, $2.2 million Bitcoin in play. We're being a little conservative if this does blow up this year by saying $1 million Bitcoin. But again, this isn't just going on in Japan. You're seeing this happen in the United States as well. Over the weekend, we saw bond yields skyrocketing. So the U.S. credit score got downgraded by Moody. And you're seeing that there's a lot of panic in the market. The U.S. 30-year yield is back to June 2007 levels, just before the great financial crisis kicked off. A 2-year bear market plus a 5-year recovery, falling dominoes are hitting foreign economies. And if you check the 30-year bonds this morning, it's almost at 5%. It actually hit 5% over the weekend, which basically means no one wants to buy bonds. Again, you can look at interest rates in a very simple framing. Interest rates is basically, what they pay people to have interest in buying these bonds. So the more they raise, the more it shows no one wants to buy these bonds. So they have to keep raising it to incentivize people to buy this. Now, the interesting stuff is kind of the reactions we saw this morning in regards to the bond markets. Of course, they're rolling out their people saying, the official members and part of the TradFi, Federal Reserve, Treasury, they're saying, guys, everything is good. As Hassett said this morning, American bonds are still the best buy. Well, it looks like the market is totally disagreeing, and we're seeing some heavyweights this morning say the exact opposite. So we saw JP Morgan CEO says, I'm not a buyer of credit today. It is a bad risk. And of course, we're not the biggest fans of Jamie Dimon. We all know Jamie Dimon. But when Jamie Dimon speaks, his words carry weight. As I've heard through the grapevine a few times, Jamie Dimon basically runs countries. We've heard he's been in talks with Trump. He's the head of the biggest bank in the world. So when he speaks, this stuff carries weight. There is a lot of uncertainty in the markets right now. When the CEO of JP Morgan speaks, the markets take note, and we're seeing that the market is reacting to these bonds right now. Now, going further, Ray Dalio, we know he's becoming a little bit of a Bitcoiner. He's not fully in Bitcoin, but he's also echoing the same exact sentiment. Ray Dalio said credit agencies are understanding sovereign credit risk because they don't include the greater risk that the countries in debt will print money to pay their debts with devalued currency. So they're all saying the same thing and tying this fully back into Bitcoin. The bond markets are scaring the big boys. Wall Street is starting to be forced to get into Bitcoin. And I think the big kahuna here following all of this bond market news is JP Morgan announced this morning they will allow their clients to buy Bitcoin. Historically, Jamie Dimon has been one of the biggest anti-Bitcoin proponents in the world. He historically said, or rather infamously said, he would fire anyone who bought Bitcoin from his company. And now he is going to allow his bank to sell Bitcoin to its customers, though they will not custody that Bitcoin. But he added he is still not a fan of Bitcoin, which I think might be the signal here. Even though he's not a fan of Bitcoin, he knows the writing on the wall is he has to, at the very least, give the people what they want if he wants to stay afloat, because these bonds, they're not looking good, guys. Now, this is a simplified 45 IQ take of what's going on in the bond markets. But essentially, when the bonds puke and no one wants to buy them, it really is showing, as that one tweet by the prophet said, systemic risk in the system. Now, this is why we are Bitcoiners. This is why we always tell you guys, you need to have an asset, a money that is not controlled or a part of the traditional financial system. Of course, that is Bitcoin, an apolitical, neutral money outside of the traditional financial system. This is the safest bet, period, right now. Yes, there's still a lot of talk about Bitcoin being a speculative asset. There's still a lot of people wrapping their heads around Bitcoin, but it's becoming very clear. And we've been covering this for the last couple of months, Nico. Bitcoin is becoming a literal global macro asset. We have matured, guys. Bitcoin is on the main stage now, and they can't ignore this. The more that these Wall Street titans start to bend the knee to Bitcoin, start to look away from bonds, the more and the faster that Bitcoin will become the truly global reserve currency, money of the world, asset, whatever you want to call it. It is happening in real time. There is fundamental problems in the system. They're going to turn on the money printer. They've already turned it on in stealth mode. They don't want people to know that there is a problem because, hey, it's literally like yelling, there's a fire in a movie theater, and you don't want to panic the markets. The more they panic the markets, the faster this basically gets accelerated, and they're slowly I would say, very slowly getting their positions ready. They need to have their positions before they announce that things are going really bad. So I posted this morning, a little GIF of the margin call beam, the big CEO guy. This is the moment in the movie where they are meeting, they're deliberating at 4 a.m. and they're wondering what is going on. And I think the takeaway is they're going to start selling, guys. They are going to tank this market at some point soon. Or the other rabbit hole, the other fork here is they are just going to print a bunch of money to devalue their debt, which means everyone's going to get wrecked here if you are not holding Bitcoin.
If you're not holding assets, basically, if you're not holding assets, like this is the Greek tragedy out of this whole situation, which is essentially like, if you
assets, every time the government prints money, you get absolutely wrecked, right? And well, Opti, we were crafting the story this morning, and Opti had such a deep understanding of it. I was like, dude, you got to do the hook, man. You got to do the intro, bro, because you get this a lot more than I do. But I'm gonna hit it from a different take, from a different perspective. Just add my 2 cents here. Essentially, Powell has not been playing ball with the Trump administration, right? Regardless of, the blowout election, the Republicans won the House, they won the Senate, they won the executive branch. Essentially, Powell has not been playing ball. And that's in stark contrast to how Powell essentially treated, monetary policy during the previous administration. He didn't really care, regardless of the, inflation, he said he came up with excuses for it during the Biden administration. He said that it was transitory, it wasn't a big problem. And then during Trump's first administration, he did the same thing, right? He kept the rates high for a long time, and it seems like during this administration, the same thing is happening, right? Even though inflation numbers continue to show that they're lower and lower and lower, Powell seems to just hold on, basically saying, you know what? No, it's still a little bit heated. And in a way, you can make an argument that the Fed's been acting a little bit political, but essentially what Opti is making the case for is they're getting forced into a corner and they're not going to have a choice but to make money, print, or go burr. And actually, you can make an argument that they already are making money, print, or go burr, but they're doing it in a way that is silent. Now, what's really interesting, I read you guys this article. It was originally released by Arthur Hayes. Essentially, he was making the case that, Jerome Powell is just going to get owned by Besant, and Besant is going to bend, and Jerome Powell is eventually going to bend the knee to Besant. And it's an incredible article. We read you guys this entire article. Of course, Arthur Hayes has like a mimetic approach to it, but essentially he makes the case that Besant is going to force Jerome Powell's hand, regardless of whether Jerome Powell wants to play ball or not. And we already know, based on a video that was released by James O'Keefe, that there was a member of the Fed, like an employee of the Fed, basically admitting on camera that Jerome Powell doesn't like the Trump administration and he'll do whatever it takes, essentially, to try to sabotage it. Now, what's really interesting is that Arthur Hayes followed up, again, referencing the BBC, which is that article that I just pulled up, where he essentially makes the case that, look, that Powell is essentially Besant's bitch. I don't know, to put it nicely, I guess.
Not our words, Arthur Hayes's.
Not our words, right? And essentially, Arthur Hayes is pulling it up right here. He's showing the charts, and he's basically saying, like, look, quite a move. The BBC is on notice. If this bleeds into higher volume in the move index, expect immediate policy action. That's exactly what Opti just covered. The first thing, that was an announcement from the Federal Reserve itself, basically signaling to the market, we will step in if we have to. And essentially, the reason that they're signaling this is because they're trying to sell bonds and no one is buying the bonds. The credit ratings are going down, right? There's panic. So what do you do? What has historically happened every single time these types of situations present themselves? Well, in the past, you know what they do? They print money. This is what Arthur Hayes is saying. Translation: equals Burr, money printer go Burr. Now, this is what Larry Lepard has essentially theorized in his book, The Big Print. This is the big print that he's talking about. Essentially, United States fiscal policy is unsustainable in the long term, and eventually they're going to just have to turn on the money printers. And essentially, that is what's happening. No one's buying the bonds. No one wants to buy the bonds. So the Fed themselves has to buy the bonds. How do they do that? They make money printer go Burr. Now, if you're in assets, meaning if you're in equities, gold, or Bitcoin, you're going to benefit tremendously from this, because as history has shown, every time money printer has gone Burr, if you're sitting in assets, real estate, equities, gold, or Bitcoin, it just goes through the roof. And obviously, Bitcoin is the best performing out of all those that I laid out, right? So yeah, I mean, I think we're on the verge of what Larry Lepard has been predicting, the big print. It's coming. It's inevitable. They don't have an option but to print. This is the whole theory. This is the case. This is the case that Satoshi Nakamoto laid out back in 2009 when he discovered or invented Bitcoin, depending on how you want to look at it. He literally put it in the Genesis block of Bitcoin, Chancellor on the brink of the second bailout for banks, because he knew that they were going to continue to print money. So he created something that would essentially protect anybody that's holding the asset, holding Bitcoin. It will essentially protect you from this fiat debasement that inevitably he knew was going to come. And it just goes down to incentives. Like, imagine if you had a money printer. Imagine the power of the money printer, that the power that it would give you to buy you votes, the power that it would give you essentially, look, if you want to go to war with a country, you can do that. You can just print money, right? It's a godlike power. I don't think anyone deserves it. I think Satoshi inherently knew that, look, it doesn't matter how moral you are, how much integrity you have. It doesn't matter. You go in there and you're like, look, I want to, lower the federal deficit. It doesn't matter. As long as the money printer is there, as long as politicians, as long as the government has the ability to essentially print money, create money for free that everyone else has to work for, they're inevitably going to use it. And what Opti has identified is, I think we might be seeing the first innings of the big print. And if you're sitting in Bitcoin, you're in a very, very well positioned, man. So look, regardless of how much politics Jerome Powell has played, Arthur Hayes absolutely nailed it here. He absolutely nailed it here. He predicted it in this article a couple months ago. We read it to you guys. He said, listen, doesn't matter how much Powell wants to play politics. Like, it doesn't matter how much he hates the Trump administration. He's going to have his hand forced, and he's going to have to turn on that money printer. And again, if you're sitting in assets, you're going to benefit from this. And it's an absolute tragedy, man. If you're in the lower and middle classes, you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're not putting at least some of that into Bitcoin, you're going to get absolutely wrecked. Again, your salary is getting debased. Look, guys, the honest truth is if you're not making 10 to 15% more than you were last year, you're actually making less money in terms of purchasing power. You might have gotten that bump salary wise, maybe that 3 to 5% bump salary wise. But if you actually take into account true inflation, which, they say it's 2 and 3%, but I would really say it's like 10 to 15%, you're actually making less than what you're making last year. And actually leads me to what we're going to talk about during the news segment. Very, very powerful clip from Steve Bannon on the Financial Times. And he's basically making the case that, look, like, if you're in the younger generations, you're nothing more than a Russian serf. You can't afford anything. You can't plan for the future. And imagine all the nihilism that comes with that. That short-term thinking, that short-term pleasure seeking, because you have no hope for the future. Bitcoin restores that hope. And we're on the verge of, I think, a money printing extravaganza the world has never seen before.
Yeah, Nico, before we move on though, I do want to add a few things here. First, Arthur Hayes is probably one of the best writers in the whole Bitcoin space, period. He you can argue about with BitMEX and the leveraging shitcoin casino all you want, but his analysis on these markets have been very on point for years at this point. He's one of the best writers. He highly recommend you go check out his work. The second thing is I'm not the creator of this idea, but I think I first heard it from our boy Nolan over there at the Great Awakening. And he has this, I wouldn't say conspiracy theories, but one of his favorite theories is the reason that Satoshi Nakamoto picked the pseudonym as a Japanese character was essentially to give a nod to the US bond markets and basically saying, look, if you guys don't get your stuff together, you are essentially going to turn into Japan. And as we're seeing right now, the Prime Minister of Japan just stated, we are in a worse financial position than Greece was. And we all know what happened when that blew up. So there is a lot of signal here. And, as we like to say, there's probably no coincidences. Or what's the meme, Nico? There's no conspiracies.
There's no conspiracies, but there's also no coincidences. Speaking of Japan, it's so funny seeing the BBC article by Arthur Hayes, right? In the beginning, it says Jerome Powell and Hiroki Kuroda became fast friends within the global central banking circuit. Kuroda's term as governor of the Bank of Japan ended a few years ago, and Powell often calls him for advice or just to chit-chat. Powell has a very tumultuous meeting with the new U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent in early March of this year. It mentally scarred him, and he needed someone to talk to. Let's listen in, right? And he kind of just like memes this, the whole thing. This is an amazing article.
And essentially what that's saying is U.S. bond markets and Japanese bond markets are like this, guys. So if there's problems in the Japanese bond markets, you best believe that there is, smoke and problems in the U.S. bond markets. And, we don't wish this on anyone, but this is why we try to come out here every single day and be like, look, how many different data points and vantage points do we have to show you that it's all leading to Bitcoin? And what we're seeing right now is directly leading to Bitcoin at this point. So, you might want to get some because your life will depend on it at this point if things really go south.
Absolutely. I do see some comments also too regarding what I claimed. So we have someone, Kikkel, he says annual M2 growth is 6 to 7%. Where is this 10 to 15% inflation idea coming from? Also, it seems like someone else agreed as well. Malek says, but coming up with another random number like 10 to 15% for true inflation seems also kind. I get it. It seems like, that's a pretty crazy number. Look, guys, if you just add it, if you just kind of combine it, the real estate prices in Miami, for example, or in any of the major cities in the United States in 2020, Opti, could you pull up the M2 money supply, please?
Yeah, one second.
Also, I think they provide the real estate data as well, right? Because and remember, guys, if you take a look at the official CPI numbers that they provide, they continuously change those numbers, and they leave certain things out to present a better number than what it actually is. So you see that giant move up, and then it just kind of continues, and it just continues to, and then again, we entered a period of quote unquote quantitative tightening, and all it did is just that little hump, and then we're going back up again, essentially. So yeah, look, the reality is that within a span of a year, real estate prices doubled in major U.S. cities. Now, was it because the prices of homes, the value of those homes doubled? No, this was inflation, right? So you have to take that into account, right? So if you're believing, what they're selling, essentially, that, inflation was 10% in 2020, it was 8% in 2021, it was 5%, that doesn't add up to 100, right? It doesn't make sense. If you actually take a look at food prices, don't take my word for it. Don't trust, verify. Look at this yourself. Look at how much life was cheaper back in 2020 compared to how it is today in terms of real estate, in terms of energy, in terms of groceries, in terms of everything. And then also take into account shrinkflation. So the quality of goods essentially decreasing. Like, for example, me and Opti have these roadcasters, right? This is how these soundboards that essentially we use to broadcast to you guys. We have version 1s of these boards. I actually got version 2 of the board because I was like, oh, great, this is an update. You know, it's the version 2 of this board. It's actually worse quality. It's made of plastic. It doesn't function as well. And you see this all over the place. Don't take my word for it. Look around you. You'll see the quality of goods decreasing. So when I talk about 10 to 15% inflation, that's what I'm taking into account. I'm taking into account the price of real estate going up, the quality of goods going down, the cost of energy going up, the cost of food going up. I used to order Uber Eats back in the day, like say a couple of years ago, right? You know, it'd be like, okay, $20 plus the fees and be like $25. You order an Uber Eats for a single person from a decent restaurant right now, it's like $36 in a US city, right? What's the minimum salary? So again, I don't believe the inflation numbers. Now, does that mean it's exactly 10 to 15%? No. But is it 3%? Is it 8% like they say? Absolutely not. And if you aggregate it together, I mean, the price of real estate doubled within a year. You know what that does to a society? And again, it's not because the actual value of that real estate has doubled. It's because they literally added more money to the supply. That's literally it. And again, if you are not sitting in assets, if you're not sitting in Bitcoin or real estate or gold, you are getting wrecked, which is the majority of society. So again, I don't believe these inflation numbers. And this is by the way, this is something that you don't trust me. You can verify this yourself. You can continuously see how they manipulate the CPI numbers. They change them. They change the variables that they include into them. Right? Why do they do that? Again, they're trying to present you something that's not real. Look, the biggest psyop of the last century, I would say, was the psyop of inflation. It was the psyop of essentially convincing the humanity that somehow money has to lose purchasing power in order to function. And that great evil is what essentially has stolen from our generation, the younger generation, and as essentially it's enabled wars. Back in the Middle Ages, when a king wanted to fight a war, as soon as he ran out of gold, the war would end. Essentially, fiat fuels endless wars because they don't have to go to the population and say, "Hey guys, listen, we gotta build another aircraft carrier. We got to build more tanks. So we got to increase your income." No, they don't have to do that. All they have to do is just print the difference, and it's this sinister tax because no one's aware of it. No one is aware they're getting taxed. No one is aware of that, right? That's the great evil of inflation, right? It is taxation via debasement, and it's our job to really point it out.
Hey, wait, Nico, one last trolley indicator of shrinkflation and inflation I just saw recently is. I don't know if you guys noticed, but Chipotle bowls got smaller and more expensive. Absolutely devastated here. Chipotle bowls are smaller.
It's everywhere. Once I pointed out, it's everywhere. Shrinkflation is everywhere, and it's a way of companies to try to keep the price at the same level, right? But they have to lower the quality of good. Right? You'll notice this everywhere. Like what inflation has done to society over the last 100 years. That rabbit hole is deep. Like the Ron Paul quote, really resonates, right? It's not a coincidence that the century of central banking was the bloodiest century in human history. And fiat money enables war. Fiat money enables theft on a grand scale. And because people are just not educated about it, right? They don't notice it. And it's like you're not only just paying income tax, you're not only paying sales tax, but you're also paying the money tax. I feel like the money tax is the most sinister, it is the most harmful, and is the biggest crime that was committed in the last century. And here's the thing, Bitcoin fixes this, and you can opt out of this money today. Anyways, guys, it's going to be a great show. We have tons to cover. Before we get to it, I do want to give a very special shout out to Simply Bitcoin's lead sponsor. Guys, I think by now, you guys should understand that you should be buying Bitcoin, right? And the platform we recommend that you guys use to buy Bitcoin is Bitcoin Well. Why? Because it's an automatic self-custody Bitcoin on-ramp. What does that mean? That means that when you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, as soon as the funds clear, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet address. They don't even give you the opportunity to leave the funds on the exchange, which perfectly aligns with the Simply Bitcoin ethos, because again, taking self-custody is how you reclaim back your financial sovereignty. Also, when you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, you earn something called Bitcoin Well points. And essentially what you could do, what you can do with those points is many things. You could redeem those points towards an orange Cybertruck, a Simply Bitcoin hoodie, a BitAxe, a Well stamp seed plate, or you can play the Bitcoin Wishing Well contest, which we're going to be doing live for you guys right now. Get your Lightning wallets ready. And first person to scan the QR code has won 305 sats, 305. Guys, if you go to bitcoinwell.com/simply today, you get 3 tosses into the Wishing Well. And every single toss, you have an opportunity to win up to 1 million Satoshis. That's like $1,000 just for signing up and making your first Bitcoin purchase. So what are you waiting for? Go to bitcoinwell.com/simply today and sign up to the best Bitcoin on-ramp in the US. All right, everybody, let's head to the numbers. We have tons to talk about. We will be right back. I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stamp Seed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on Stamp Seed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. Head over to stampseed.com today. All right, everybody. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $105,520. Block height 897,431 sats per dollar. Under 1,000, we're sitting pretty at 948. Market cap 2.1 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap 9.18%. Percentage issued 94.6%, decline from all-time high. Oh, just a little bit, guys. If you buy Bitcoin right now, you're getting it at a 3.3% discount. Realized monetary inflation 0.84%, continuing to take fiat currencies to absolute school. Anyways, I saw a really, really cool clip by Lyn Alden on the What Bitcoin Did podcast hosted by Danny Knowles. So let's check it out, and then me and Opti will talk about it.
I don't know if you've not been on Twitter for a while, Lyn, but Bitcoin's priced in teeth.
Yeah.
That was one of the most frustrating things I've ever seen. I can't believe people are comparing Bitcoin to teeth in 2025.
I'm bullish on it because it shows that it's still just poorly understood. If everyone understood it and this was the price, it'd be like, well, is this how far we're getting? But the fact that so many people still don't understand it, I'm like, well, that's why we're only this far. That's why Bitcoin's worth 2.2%. So 0.2% of global assets roughly are Bitcoin's equal to that value. Gold's 2%. And that's partially why is because people are still like, well, my teeth are scarce. Why aren't they worth billions? It's like, well, because they're not part of a dominant network effect fungible protocol. It's like why isn't my little pet protocol competing with simple mail transfer protocol or USB? because it's not even.
So, I mean, I think that's a signal right there. I'm going to kind of open it up to me and Opti, right? Yeah, no one's excited, right? You know, and I kept posting last night, by the way, when we hit 107. By the way, Josh Mandel, highly recommend following that account. That guy is the Lisan Al-Gaib of this cycle, man. Predicting what's.
Well, he was a month late, let's be honest.
No. But last night he was like, look, we're going to hit 107, then we're going to go back to 103.
Oh, okay. I missed that.
So, like, what I'm trying to say is, yeah, no, of course, we've normalized in our head, guys. 100K is that's whatever, you know. I'll start to feel something. I'll start to feel alive again, maybe at 120. Before that, you know.
Someone
anyways,
bear out the chat.
I want to double back to what Lyn was saying because she was dropping signal there. Look. The reality is that the world still doesn't know that Bitcoin is meant to go up forever. That is the opportunity. That is the opportunity you have. If the world knew this, you wouldn't have the opportunity. You wouldn't have the multiple. You wouldn't have, you know, a potential 10x in the next, 5 years or so. You're never going to get those types of returns on anything else that is as risk adjusted, right? Because you could always gamble, on an altcoin and this and that. But if you want something that's, basically a sure thing at this point, right? It's obviously Bitcoin. And another thing that I'll say as well is, like, when you start to see countries like El Salvador, countries like, Burma, not Burma, Bhutan, when you start to see Wall Street players, mimic the MicroStrategy or the strategy, the strategy, that tells you everything you need to know, right? When the United States government is basically announcing to the world via their X account that they have every intention to essentially make Bitcoin a strategic asset for the United States government, that tells you everything you need to know. Mind you, we have not made all-time highs since all these things have happened, right? So the hash rate has hit all-time highs. The US government has announced to the world, we have every intention to make Bitcoin a strategic reserve. You have essentially every bank, Opti just broke the news, including Jamie Dimon's bank, announcing, hey, we're going to offer spot Bitcoin to our clients. Why is that happening? That's not happening because Jamie Dimon has changed his mind on Bitcoin. That's happening because there's demand in those banks. And those banks know that if they don't offer that to their clients, they potentially risk losing their clients, right? And we have not made all-time highs since Inauguration Day. The Inauguration Day, we hit 109. We have not gone back to 109 even after all of this news has broken in the last 4 months. So I've been saying this whole cycle. This has been the most bullish cycle from a news perspective, but one of the most bearish cycles from a price action perspective. But I suspect it's only a matter of time before the price action catches up, and then we enter the banana zone. So I think that's what Lyn Alden was saying, right? Kind of making jokes of the FT documentary about the lady. I can't believe they aired that. That just made them look kind of dumb. But like the FT lady was basically like, look, like, my teeth are scarce, like I wouldn't take my advice on this because I've been wrong. But I don't know, I just don't like how she presented it. But the point is that that's a good thing for you, because if everyone knew about Bitcoin, then, hey, guess what? We'd be at $1 million by now. We'd be at $5 million by now. People still don't know. People are figuring it out. If you pay attention to all the signs, it's incredibly obvious that the train is leaving. I would say the train has left the station, but you could still run and jump onto the caboose. The caboose is the last train on a train, right? You could still jump onto the caboose, but the train has left the station. It's moving, but it's still slow enough for you to jump on, right? Anyways, Opti, what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I think Lyn's right here. And my take is just as simple, and I know it's cliche at this point, but we are still so early to Bitcoin. It more day by day. We're totally still early to Bitcoin. Day by day, it becomes more obvious to me that we are still early. When the popular culture, mainstream narratives around Bitcoin is my teeth are scarce, why isn't it worth $1 billion? It's like, either one, some people just can't be saved, or two, maybe Bitcoin is super complicated for these people to understand, which just goes to show we are still early. Yes, 100K Bitcoin is kind of like an expensive pipe dream at some point, 10 years ago. But if some of this math starts playing out, buying Bitcoin at 100K and it's going to millions, I don't know about you, but it still sounds early to me, Nico.
Yeah, I mean, it's early depending on your time frame, right? Like if Michael Saylor's prediction, his 20-year prediction from now, right? 2045, 20 years from now, $13 million Bitcoin. You can get $13 million for $105,000 right now. That's a hell of a deal, right?
Sounds like a good trade to me.
But it depends on how you're looking at it, right? Depends on what your time preference is. But I think Lyn, as she always does, a bit of wisdom there. Right. I just don't think people have realized this. And something else I'll say as well. Shout out to the live stream, by the way, absolutely popping off today. 2,700 of you guys watching live on X, 675 of you guys watching live on YouTube, and Rumble coming in strong at 71 live viewers. So if you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. We're already 162 likes on YouTube. Help us break 200 likes by the next segment. So smash that like button, and guys, if you guys are enjoying the content, really, really helps with the algos. But yeah, I mean, look, I think Lyn Alden absolutely hit the nail on the head. This is something that we've been saying for quite a while. Look, guys, I don't think the majority, look, if you guys are on the street and you're crossing the sidewalk, or you guys are in traffic and you look around, you look at the cars, what percentage of you guys do you think what percentage of those people do you think own Bitcoin? Right? Like, just use your common sense, use your intuition. It's not that high, right? If that number gets to like 50, 60%, we're at $1 million per coin, right? So
I would say higher. I would say way higher.
So like, this is really, you guys have to understand where we are in the movie, where we are in the adoption phase. And again, if you look at all the news and you take the news at face value, and I agree with Adam Back. I agree with Samson. I think we're underpriced, but look, Bitcoin's like a beach ball right now. You could put it underwater for so long, but as soon as you let that go, that thing's going to explode, right? So anyways, guys, it's going to be an incredible show. We still have lots to cover. I have a clip from Steve Bannon, and essentially he's describing, situation that Opti and I cover a lot, right? Because it's just our generation, right? Simply Bitcoin is kind of like the members here at Simply Bitcoin, where, we're a mix of millennials and Zoomers. And we know our audience is full of Gen Xers and boomers and all that. But, this is something obviously that plays close to me and Opti's heart, obviously, as people that got really, really screwed during the 2008 financial crisis. I think Steve Bannon really hits nail on the head in terms of this next clip that we're going to play for you guys. And then we're going to go through this website called What the F Happened in 1971, which, again, kind of connecting it with what I was saying in the beginning of the show regarding inflation, right? Guys, inflation and essentially the disconnection from sound money has really, really screwed up society in many, many different ways. I could even make the argument, depending on where you are in the rabbit hole, that essentially I think that you could make an argument that fiat money has spiritually corrupted society. I think a lot of the moral decay, I think a lot of the madness that you see in the world today could be directly pointed to the fact that politicians and people literally believe that money could be printed out of thin air, right? Without working, without producing anything, just we can print money and just pay for everything. And if that were the case, Zimbabwe would be one of the wealthiest countries on the place of the earth right now. But they're not. That's not how money works, right? The reason that the U.S. government is able to get away with it is because they are the global reserve currency. Because they are the global reserve currency, essentially a lot of other countries are holding dollars. They're essentially able to print a lot more than they normally would be able to without turning into Argentina. Right. So is that sustainable long term? No, that's not sustainable at all. But again, this is a good thing if you're holding Bitcoin, because if you're holding Bitcoin, again, when they inevitably do the big print, what Larry Lepard says, if you're holding Bitcoin, it's going to go to the absolute moon. Anyways, guys, before we move on to the next segment, I do want to give a very special shout out to our limited edition merch that just dropped. It's selling out. Get yours while supplies last. Guys, it's comfortable. It's stylish. This isn't drop ship. We literally buy the merch beforehand. We hold it in inventory and we ship it directly to you guys. It has custom labeling. The hoodie is incredibly comfortable. You can wear it every day. It's the type of hoodie that you don't want to put into the washer because it will get rid of that original comfortness. So guys, if you want to support the show, of course, stack some sats first. Head over to simplybitcoin.com today and check out the latest collection of merch. It really, really helps us. Anyways, guys, let's move on to the news. We have tons to cover. We'll be right back. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Casa. Casa makes self-custody easy and secure. As a Bitcoiner, I care about holding my own private keys, but multi-sig can sometimes get tricky. Casa nails it with a multi-key security. So even if one key gets lost or stolen, your Bitcoin stays safe. And you don't give up custody, meaning no one could access your Bitcoin but you. No seed phrase anxiety, no single point of failure. I've been telling my friends and family about Casa for years. Their UX and UI on their app is by far the best in the industry. Inheritance planning is built in, and they even offer Casa for Business if you're thinking about a Bitcoin treasury. Hit up casa.io today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 10% off Casa Standard or Casa Premium. Head over to casa.io.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, CoinKite. If you take your Bitcoin security seriously, you'll need the best Bitcoin hardware wallet on the market to take self-custody. That's where Cold Card comes in. The Cold Card Q is the most advanced Bitcoin signing device ever made. It's got a full keyboard, larger screen, and NFC support, making air-gap signing easier than ever. It's built for power users who want the ultimate security without sacrificing usability. And if you're looking for a battle-tested, uncompromising cold storage, the Cold Card MK4 is your go-to with PSBT signing, an industrial-grade secure element, and USB-C. It's the perfect blend of security and convenience. Both devices are, of course, 100% Bitcoin only, open source, and built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. Secure your Bitcoin the right way with the Cold Card Q and the MK4. Head over to coldcard.com today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 5% off anything on the store.
All right, everybody, we are back, and this is Opti, and he is modeling the Cold Card Q. Guys, this is the best Bitcoin hardware wallet on the market. Opti's showing it off for you guys. Opti, could you show the back, please? It's completely transparent, so you could see if people mess with it or not. Guys, open source, 2 secure elements. You can scan, you can tap, you can get a camera. You can essentially scan. There's so many different ways to sign with this. It has an A to Z keyboard. Again, one of the easiest and best Bitcoin hardware wallets on the market right now. You can use promo code SIMPLY to get 5% off anything on their store. Head over to coldcard.com today. All right, everybody, before we show off the website, what the F happened in 1971, I do want to play you guys this clip. Again, it really resonated with me the first time I saw it. Let's check it out.
That's not, haven't done this for 14 generations to leave it like that. That has to be changed. We have to change that. And yes, the people that want to come over here and immigrate, there's a system for that. And we're not going to shut that down. I think we have to shut down the scams of these visas right now to give priority to American citizens. And yes, we can get back to a situation where you have one provider, whether it's the husband or the wife, the other is at home, and you can raise kids like we used to raise kids in this country with hands-on from their parents, and that's where we're going to turn this country around. And if you're going to laugh and mock at that, fine, laugh and mock at it. But that's what.
So another thing, like, let's talk about that, right? Let's put all the political things aside, and let's talk about the aspect in terms of how come back in the day you used to be able to essentially provide for your family with one income and there was dignity to it, right? So put the immigration, put all that set aside. That's not this type of show. It's not. You guys tuned into the wrong show if you guys are looking for the political talk. We're at the money talk, right? How come 30 years ago, 40 years ago, you used to be one parent? I don't care whether it's the wife or the husband. It doesn't matter to me. That doesn't, again, not the type of show. But how come 20 or 30 years ago, you had one parent, they'd be able to go to work and provide a living for the family? How come that was the norm? How come now the norm is both parents have to go to work to provide for their family just to live a lower middle class lifestyle? If society as a whole has gotten wealthier, productivity advances have gotten wealthier, how come we've gotten poorer? It's undeniable. It's undeniable. Where I think Bannon is wrong, where I think Trump is wrong, is the solution, right? Because we already have a solution to this. The solution is switch to a Bitcoin standard, do it for like 2 cycles, and I promise you, you're going to be free compared to, the people around you, right? So let's have this conversation. It's a very difficult conversation, but we're going to continue to harp on it. And I'm going to show you guys this website called What the F Happened in 1971, right? So what Bannon's talking about, and again, I think he has like a blind spot, because again, he's looking at it from what does Opti call it? The MAGA movement thing.
I don't know if I could say it on the show, but
I think he has a blind spot to it because he's looking at it from, okay, like if you vote harder, we can solve this. As Bitcoiners, again, we fundamentally understand, even with Elon going in there, Elon Musk, okay, one of the most competent people on the face of the planet, dude literally invented self-landing rockets, okay, and self-driving cars. Literally could only cut the deficit, I think it was like 150 billion. His goal was $1 trillion. And he got so much political pushback, like people started setting his cars on fire, that essentially he had to walk it back, right? And this is where Bitcoiners understand this. The system is so broken, it's so addicted to fiat money that if you go in there, it's like a political death sentence. Like you're putting a giant target on your back because people are addicted to this fiat money, and rightly so. Like, could you imagine if you go in there, like put the ethics aside of it, right? You're essentially benefiting from this printed money, right? And you go in there and someone tries to change it, quote unquote, cut cost. You're essentially looking at it like someone's trying to attack your livelihood, right? Like it messes up incentives, right? But let's get back to what he was saying, right? Like, let's get back society to this situation where essentially one parent, whether it's the mother or the father, I don't know, I'll let you guys decide, goes out, works, and then one stays home, takes care of the kids. Or let's say you both want to work. That's cool too, right? But how can we live in this society that since the 1970s, right? Since the 70s, essentially, we've had to work harder and harder and harder, but we've received less. Well, let's take a look at some of the data, shall we? So this website's called What the F Happened in 1971. As you've seen, as you can notice, what I've been telling you, productivity has increased, right? But compensation essentially has remained flat. What happened in 1971? Well, that's when the great fiat experiment started. That's when Richard Nixon took us off the gold standard. But it keeps going because you could say, all right, Nico, like, that's happenstance, whatever. What about real GDP, real wages, and trade policies? So real GDP per FTE, real wage, average wage, real median weekly earnings of full-time workers. Look at that. It's literally been flat. How about income gains widely shared in early post-war decades, but not since then? So again, like everyone has been getting wealthier. So like the lower class, the middle class, the upper class, everyone's going to be getting wealthier. And then in 1971, essentially the rich have gotten significantly richer. And the poor and the middle class, essentially it's gone sideways. And you feel that. That's the wealth inequality. That's why you can't afford homes. That's why rent is so high. This is literally why. It's fiat money. It's broken the system. So it keeps going, right? Relentless 50-year decline in wages share of the economy's total income. Again, look at the date, 1971. United States GINI ratio for families. Higher equals more unequal income inequality, right? Again, started in 1971. And it keeps going. Real GDP per capita, median male income. Again, right? So GDP goes higher, country gets richer, but the income of the average person stays the same. America has become a nation of dual income working couples. This is what Steve Bannon was talking about, and I'll leave it here, right? So again, since 1971, it was both spouses working, right? So it went up from 47% to 66%. And then husband only working, it was 38%. It's gone down to 21%. So what's happened? Like, what is going on here? It's the broken money, right? So don't let them swindle you into the political solution, right? The political solution is, if Elon couldn't do it, what makes you think it's not possible? The system is so corrupt, so broken. The incentives are so misaligned. You can't fix it from within. You have to opt out of it entirely. And what's awesome about Bitcoin is that even though I've pointed out all these problems to you, and it might be slightly depressing, and I get it, like, here's the thing. You can essentially opt out and start saving in Bitcoin, and you don't have to wait on who gets into office. That's not to mean that voting isn't important. Voting's important. We got Ross free. We got essentially Operation Choke Point 2.0 ended. You know, the US government might pump our bags, which is dope, right? So it's not to say it isn't important. It is important. But the most important vote you can make is the vote with your wallet. Vote with your wallet. Start saving in Bitcoin and start denominating your net worth in Bitcoin and see how much more your life improves. And that's my message here. So stop watching the political mumbo jumbo, because it's a circus. It's a circus. This is how Simply Bitcoin differentiates ourselves from all those political shows, whether they're on the right or the left. They don't have a solution for you. Their solution for you is to vote harder, daddy. Our solution is vote with your wallet and your life will start improving. It's not an overnight thing. I'm not going to lie to you. It takes years to transition to a Bitcoin standard. But at least we have a solution that works, right? And that's something that these political shows, they can't offer you the same thing. They can say, vote harder, daddy. If that were the case, how come things just get progressively worse regardless of what party is in power? For most people, the wealth inequality is caused by fiat. The endless wars is caused by fiat. The terrible food is caused by fiat. Broken money, broken world. And I think this is even deeper. I think it goes down to a spiritual level where you can make an argument that fiat money breaks the spirit. It's that effing deep. I look, don't trust me, verify yourself. And you'll start to feel better. You'll start to care about your health. You'll start to care about the future if you just switch to Bitcoin. Isn't that weird? Isn't that interesting? Just because all of a sudden now you have money that allows you to dream and hope for the future, all of a sudden you start caring about yourself. Now, could you imagine most of society is living like this short-term thinking, this nihilistic future? Bro, that's depressing. Anyways, that's the end of my rant.
Well, Nico, we don't have to imagine it. We're literally living it in real time. It's literally where we are right now. Anyways, on the point you were saying, we did get a super chat by Vault Dweller. Thanks for the $2. And he goes, after adopting a Bitcoin standard, my stress levels died. And further, we got one in the beginning. I can't pull it up right now, Ron. But Ron P, thank you for the $5. Love you, bro. I think I had some other stuff here, Nico, and it's exactly on point. So, like, if people are taking this kind of like from the political angle, they don't like Steve Bannon or whatever. I saw this come out this morning as well on CNBC, and it's titled "Why Millennials Feel Broke Despite Rising Net Worth." And they did a whole video on this topic of, Gen Z and millennials feeling broker than ever, even though, quote, on paper, our net worth is going up. And just a little blurb here, Gen Z and millennials are facing a financial paradox. Despite higher wages and a rise in net worth, many still live paycheck to paycheck. Watch the video to learn why. And basically why buying a home or starting a family feel out of reach, and how instability, debt, and housing costs are forcing young adults to rethink what, quote, making it really means in today's economy. And to the point that Nico said, where like both sides of the aisle really don't have a solution. And literally that by the end of the video, the solution was essentially you're just going to like have roommates and you're going to build a community, and maybe one day you'll be able to save. And the big problem is people aren't saving because they're living paycheck to paycheck. And I watched the video and I came out of it and I was like, they didn't touch on Bitcoin at all. They did touch on saving, but saving in what? And if you're saving in dollars, there's no way to escape this. This is why we're always like save in Bitcoin. And further, we got this clip here coming out of the NYU business professor Scott Galloway. And he said, quote, the average 70-year-old is 72% wealthier than 40 years ago. And those under 40 are 24% less wealthy. Every major policy is a wealth transfer from the young to the old. Our generations, the younger generations, and maybe even people that are Gen Xers and boomers as well, are being robbed in slow motion. And Bitcoin is the exit. Bitcoin is the fix. You want to get into a money or store your wealth in something that cannot be debased. So it really doesn't matter what side of the aisle you are looking at, what your flavor of choice is. Everyone is touching on the same thing, but they don't have a solution to this. And of course, we are Simply Bitcoin. Our solution is very simple. You just need to start saving in Bitcoin, taking it into custody, providing value, living below your means for, a short time, couple of years, and you will be able to claw yourself out of this debt spiral. Like, if you take anything away from this whole show, is that there is a fundamental problem playing out right now, and a lot of people don't know what that problem is. And I don't necessarily think people need to understand fully what the problem is. I think a lot of people subconsciously feel it. They know there's a problem, but they just don't know that there's a solution. So you don't necessarily need to hit on, what the exact point of the problem is. All you need to show them is the solution is Bitcoin. And this is how we win, is more people realizing, whether they understand the nuance of the fiat system or the nuances of Bitcoin, all they need to know is, I need to save Bitcoin. This is how I preserve my wealth, my purchasing power, and this is how I can live a life that I want to live. No one on any side of the aisle is talking about Bitcoin as any viable solution to the biggest problem we are facing right now. Your money is trash. It is literally toilet paper that we exchange, for goods and survival. And no one can pinpoint that problem, because they know if you talk about that problem, then the jig is up. Then people stop trusting in the institutions, and that's going to inevitably lead to Bitcoin. As the trust in institutions crumble, Bitcoin's going up. And this is how, Bitcoin's going to continue to win, because they're going to continue to do the same thing and expand the money supply, print more money. You're going to get broker. People are going to get more upset. So you need to protect yourself. That is the fundamental takeaway here.
Look, guys, the government isn't going to save you. The politician, whether he's on the right or the left, they're not going to save you. They're not going to make your life better. You yourself have the agency to make your life better through hard work and through saving. The scam that I would say the biggest crime that has been committed on humanity over the last 100 years is essentially taking away that hope from people, right? That, look, most people don't want to trade. Most people don't want to speculate. But we live in a society where just to maintain your purchasing power, you're forced to invest.
What Bitcoiners are just basically making the case for is like, look, guys, do whatever you want, focus on your craft, right? And save in Bitcoin, and your life gets better over time. That's all we're saying. Don't trust us? I mean,
no. We are scamming you into profits.
That's up,
buy Bitcoin.
That's up to you, dude.
Trust
that's
us.
up to you. That's up to you. I mean, if you don't trust us, that's fine. That's fine. Like, I look, guys, to keep tuning in to your favorite political talk show host, and they can keep correctly identifying the problem. But I think we're one of the only live shows on a consistent basis. You can say we're political. You could say we're not political. Whatever you want to label us as. We're one of the only shows that is actually providing you a solution and explaining to you why the world is going mad. It is literally because of broken money. We'll be right back. We're going to hit the culture. I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technology. Why HIVE in 2025? Unstoppable growth. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's position to quadruple their global footprint, making them one of the world's fastest growing miners in 2025. And with elite operations that consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, HIVE's now headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable Bitcoin mining. You can catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com. Need liquidity without having to sell your Bitcoin? For more than 6 years now, Lyn has been the trusted choice for Bitcoin-backed lending with transparency, security, and trust at their core. I absolutely love these guys, and I personally not only have an account with them, but also a loan. And some of the key features that I love about Lyn is the fact that there are no monthly payments. You pay at the end of the term. You also have the ability to roll over the loan as well, and you can pay it back whenever you want. Essentially what they do is that they help their clients unlock the liquidity of their BTC, allowing you to hodl while still accessing the wealth of your Bitcoin. They've been battle tested with their focus on transparency, security, and trust, allowing them to build a proven track record of client success and security, helping tens of thousands of clients harness the value of their digital assets with confidence and peace of mind. Learn more about what your BTC can do for you today. Simply Bitcoin viewers get 0.25% off their first loan by using the link in the video/podcast description. What are you waiting for? Head over to ledin.io today. Pew, 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 pew. We are back.
All right, I gotta, this one's gonna be kind of quick today, but I saw this interesting story last week, and we've been obviously, the Financial Times is talking about my teeth are scarce. What's this digital scarcity thing meme? Obviously, a lot of people like gold bugs are talking about, hey, gold's scarce. It has a longer track record. But I don't know if you guys saw this, and it's no cause to alarm here, but it is a very interesting story, just highlighting the importance of digital scarcity, or rather, the 21 million meme in particular. So I'm sure you guys saw this, or maybe not, but scientists turned lead into gold for first time. And there's a caveat, obviously, the cause for no concern is, but only for a split second. So the Large Hadron Collider created 89,000 gold atoms per second. And obviously, as Bitcoiners, we're like, you can't create more Bitcoin with the Hadron Collider. This is why Bitcoin is going to continue to go up. So just reading this a little bit, and then we'll kind of chat about it and really talk about digital scarcity. That's what it's really about. Like why the 21 million hard cap is so important. And obviously, this isn't like huge news story. It's not like they're going to be printing kilos of gold yet, but I'm sure the technology might get there. So in a breakthrough that would make medieval alchemists envious, scientists at Europe's Large Hadron Collider have successfully transformed lead into gold. Literally like what the alchemists were trying to do for, centuries here, hundreds of years, producing 89,000 atoms per second. The team behind this discovery, called Alice Collaboration, used a unique way to create gold. Instead of crashing lead atoms head on, they looked at what happens when the atoms just barely miss each other. And researchers explain that when this happens, powerful electromagnetic fields around the atoms can cause them to change into different elements. Obviously, like, it's a crazy scientific experiment, but the fact that they can create gold out of nothing, I think, is going to eventually really destroy the scarcity meme around gold, and really going to highlight the scarcity of Bitcoin. Who knows if they'll get there, a year, 5 years, or whatever. But we know that, hey, as long as gold goes up in price, there will be incentives to create more gold. And now we have figured out a way to essentially do this for now on a small scale to create more gold. And we know what happens when something similar happened with diamonds. Once they figured out how to create diamonds, the market seems to have fallen out of the diamond premium. So here, just so you guys get some, context, and we're not like clickbaiting here, but how much gold did they make during one period of experiments from 2015 to 2018? The scientists created about 86 billion gold atoms, and that sounds like a lot, but if you add all that up, scientists said it only weighs about 29 picograms, which is less than a trillionth of a gram, and you need trillions of times more to make even a tiny piece of jewelry. So they haven't gotten to the point where they can create like gold bars here, but I think the fact that we are seeing technology get to the point where they can create gold, like the alchemist's dream, we're entering some very strange times here, Nico. Like, they can literally create gold now. Obviously, it was only for a second. They haven't figured out how to like make sure that it stays in its gold form for forever here. But it really highlights the digital scarcity meme. And I know recently the digital gold meme is kind of catching on, and it's like all the rage right now, considering we're seeing so many problems with the traditional financial system. And, gold is traditionally like a hedge against the fiat system. And Bitcoin now it's kind of falling into this category, this box, so that people can wrap their head around what Bitcoin actually is. I'm not the biggest fan of the digital gold meme, but it is catching on. And now we have even further examples of the importance of the 21 million hard cap. Do I think this is like a significant breakthrough to gold? Not really, but I think it is a very interesting kind of sci-fi view of where we are. Like, we're in very strange times. I repeat, like the strangest times ever. And now they can literally smash particles or spread particles. I mean, I'm not the Large Hadron Collider expert here, but put particles in a certain way to create gold for a little bit. I'm sure they will figure this out. If there's a will and there's a way, they are going to do it. And that's not even going into, remember the historical, or more the infamous, hilarious video of the Winklevi brothers talking to Dave Portnoy, and like, there's asteroids out there with gold, and if we want to, we can mine it. And it's really just starting to remind me of like anime sci-fi world that we're living in. But this is why the 21 million Bitcoin is so important. This is why we say it's going up forever, is because you can never create more Bitcoin. Yes, they could create paper Bitcoin, try to suppress the price of Bitcoin. But as long as Bitcoin has the 21 million hard cap, it will always be Bitcoin. And we can't forget, there's I think now it's 1,000 trillion. What is it? 1 quadrillion of wealth in the world. And that has to get smushed into 21 million Bitcoin or 2.1 quadrillion sats. It's going up forever. You guys are still early. It's very interesting that we're at this moment in time right now. It just like, things are crazy. It's really blowing my mind, the stuff that scientists can do. And the fact people can still say like, oh, what's this digital, Bitcoin, my teeth are scarce. Why isn't it worth $1 billion? And you're just like, wow, we have so much work to do here. And it's mind blowing, to be honest. I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, they can make gold now, guys. Well, for a little bit, it's a little stretchy.
I mean, so like, okay, so really, I'm really glad that you brought up that article. So, okay, so a couple of things, like you always hear like, oh, the world's going to run out of oil, right? And you always hear like, the gold and like whatever. Well, it's all economics, right? Like you could always get more oil. It's going to be more difficult to get that oil because it's like, either it's like you have to process the oil more, you have to frack it. It's really deep underwater. But if the price is high enough, it justifies the expense of extracting said oil. The same thing applies to gold. The only reason that SpaceX isn't being contracted by companies to go to asteroids to mine those asteroids of said gold is because the price of gold isn't high enough. But if the price of gold goes high enough, right, then it justifies extracting more gold. That's why gold has this like very consistent type of inflation, right? Because what happens if the price of gold goes up? People just want to start mining more gold. That's what happens. What makes Bitcoin unique compared to those other two commodities, right? Which is exactly, people are saying peak oil. That's BS. Look, there's so much oil in the ground. It's just not economical for you to take it out, right? It comes down to economics. What makes Bitcoin very unique and very special, right? Like scientists have figured out how to, essentially turn lead into gold in a laboratory, whatever. There's asteroids with, trillions of gold in it, whatever. This and that. There's no extra Bitcoin in the ground. Okay. There's 21 million. There's a hard cap. It's not going to change. Number one. And number two, every 4 years with the halving, that gets cut in half, meaning the amount of Bitcoin that's mined literally gets cut in half every 4 years. So like the daily sell pressure from Bitcoin miners gets cut in half every 4 years. So regardless of what happens to the price, even if the price goes up, there's only so much Bitcoin you can mine. And in fact, every 4 years, that amount of Bitcoin that you can mine on a daily basis gets cut in half. That's absolute scarcity. Nothing on planet Earth has that level of scarcity, which is why Bitcoin is the best asset the world has ever seen, which is why I believe Bitcoin has outperformed everything else. The world is waking up to the fact that Bitcoin is the superior asset. And the market cap of gold right now is roughly 20 trillion.
22
trillion. The market cap of Bitcoin is roughly 2 trillion. So you're making the case to me. This is why Max Kaiser is talking about 2 million, whatever. You're looking at me straight in the face and you're saying, Nico, like, gold is better than Bitcoin. Well, gold's had a head start, right? It's physical, that it has that going for it, but you can't say it's more scarce. Cannot say it's more scarce. And you cannot say it's better at holding value. You can't say it. Why? They just literally created it in a laboratory. It's floating in outer space. It's a question of economics. It's not a question of can you get more gold? It's a question of economics. Is it economical for me to mine more gold? With Bitcoin, it's not a question of economics. It doesn't matter how high the price of Bitcoin goes up. There's only so much Bitcoin that's going to be mined on a daily basis, and that gets cut in half every 4 years. So, laying all that out, the market cap of gold is 22 trillion. The market cap of Bitcoin is 2 trillion. 10x. So 10x times 105, we're at $1 million, right? And I think it's even better that like just reaching the market cap of gold is thinking small, in my opinion. Anyways, I do want to give a shout out to the live stream. 4,055 live viewers between YouTube and X, 676 live viewers on YouTube alone, and roughly 80 of you guys watching live on Rumble. If you guys enjoyed today's show, smash that like button, and really, really helps with the algos. But before we close out the show, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, the Bitcoin conference that's happening in Vegas. It's coming up May 27th through the 29th. I believe that's next week. Opti, we got a big week in front of us, brother. Lots of work. It's going to be awesome. We hope to see you guys. They got a headline speaker. They got a sitting vice president to be making an appearance, to be speaking. You have Ross Ulbricht, freedom fighter. You have Michael Saylor. You have Jack Mallers. You have Senator Lummis. You have two of the president's sons going to be making an appearance. They're going to be speaking at the Bitcoin conference. You definitely don't want to miss it. Again, May 27th through the 29th, Bitcoin 2025, Las Vegas, Nevada. Get your tickets now. Scan the QR code on your screen. Use promo code SIMPLY. Again, promo code SIMPLY at checkout. And you get 10% off your tickets to Bitcoin 2025. All right, everybody. Love you all. I'm your host, Nico. This is my co-host, Optimus Fields. We're Simply Bitcoin Live, and we'll see you tomorrow for a brand new episode.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.